And now, it's Coast View with Ricky Matthews. Brought to you by AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
From our studio here in beautiful coastal Mississippi, welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women and really not just here in coastal Mississippi, from across this state who are working so hard to make this a great place to live, work, and play. You know, I've really been looking forward to the show that we're going to have today. We're going to be joined shortly by Nina Parikh, who is the director of the Mississippi Film Office. But if you think about Mississippi, you don't think about production and filmmaking, and you think about all the changes in the movie arena these days with streaming and the opportunities that creates for Mississippi. You think about the pandemic, and you wonder, you know, what did the incentives that were launched by Mississippi many years ago, how does that help us, and how has the pandemic changed things, and what kind of person can lead this effort for so many years? She's clearly stood the test of time, that is for sure. So we're going to have a wide-ranging conversation, and let me welcome Nina Parikh, the director of Mississippi Film Office, to Coast View. How you doing, Nina?
I'm great. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk about filmmaking, of course, but to talk about how it relates to the Gulf Coast.
For sure, and we're gonna really cover the spectrum. You've been at the office there you've been around filmmaking for a better part of your life, haven't you?
Most of my life, yeah. I mean, I started out when I was in high school, moving into college. I wasn't real sure what I wanted to do. And I like to tell this story to students, particularly, you know, the students that are coming to me, or when I'm out in the world talking to students coming to the coast, to high schools, wherever it happens to be. I went to college not quite knowing what I wanted to do. And that first year, you know, I was general studies, and talking to my best friend, he said, you know, you love stories and you love photography. Why don't you marry those two together and study film? And I always tell students, sometimes your friends know you better than you know yourself. So I went into filmmaking.
Yeah, that's good. So you went to University of Southern Mississippi.
I did.
You also went to New York University. My son, who lives in New York City, I said it's a long way from Mississippi to New York, but it's really not that far, is it, in the scheme of things?
It's true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, the connections. It's funny that, you know, when you're out in the world as a Mississippian, the world becomes a lot smaller because of our connections, because we know how to connect to one another in Mississippi so easily. We are a big, small town. The whole state is a big, small town. And I think we take that with us wherever we go in the world, and we make those connections, and we end up connecting ourselves back to Mississippi and other people back to Mississippi, no matter where we are.
No, I definitely agree with you. I talk about it on Coast View all the time, that we have, in some ways, we have a competitive advantage. I would say certainly the challenges that we've had over many, many years. I mean, Mississippi has some history, but the reality is some of that history actually involving disasters and other very significant challenges. And when we are in those moments is when we really find out what is in the heart and soul of Mississippians. And, you know, take all the politics and set that aside for a second. This is not a political show. But what I like to do is focus on what's really in the heart of Mississippians. And when the going gets tough, Nina, we care about our neighbors. We care about each other. And I had this great conversation with Don Wilson recently. He's an old friend. He's from Gulfport, but in his early 20s, he went to LA as a film producer and went on to do some incredible things, including, for example, he produced and worked with Michael Jackson on the Man in the Mirror video, and has done, you know, he's worked with just about every major star you can imagine. He's been credited with the MTV style video. He's produced Olympics. He's just done it all. But he tells this great story, and you'll relate to this because you went from Mississippi to New York, and now you're hosting literally people from all over the world as part of the film program. He said that when he got to Hollywood in LA and began to work with people there as a young guy who was very talented, but really still trying to understand the industry and all that. he learned quickly that this thing he brought with him from coastal Mississippi was going to be very important to him, and that was just the ability to be nice, just the ability to care about people. Because as I said it, these weren't his words, but simply implying that there were a sea of jerks in the industry, and sometimes it made a gigantic difference just to care about people and be nice. But it is a competitive advantage for us, isn't it?
It is. It really is. I mean, I was just talking to someone this past week about how, as Mississippians, we have this ability to create intimacy with someone quickly because that whole small town thing, we want to know about your family. We want to know about what you do in your life. You know, do you golf? Do you, what do you like to cook? We do that real quickly. And so, it didn't occur to me until recently that really is some intimacy that we can create that maybe most of the world doesn't do so easily.
It makes a difference. And, when you see people and you host people from all over who come here, some of them ultimately decide to live here, don't they?
They do. They absolutely do. Absolutely. It's happened time and again. And there is actually, this is related to the Gulf Coast. There's a movie made called Vanquish that was a year and a half ago, close to 2 years ago. Morgan Freeman was in it as an action film. And the editor of that film, who's French, but was living in Los Angeles or in the Los Angeles area, obviously this is during the pandemic, and he decided, I want to be somewhere where I can have some land and where my son can run around and, have access to the countryside like he did when he was in France growing up. And they were doing production here, and I guess he must have visited and heard a lot about Mississippi through the people that were working on the movie. He bought a place sight unseen. He got online, he looked for property, and he's here now. So that happens pretty frequently, and I don't know that people understand that. Natchez is booming right now. There are people moving there. Tate Taylor, who's the director of The Help and Get On Up, Ma, Breaking News in Yuba County, he's a Jackson native, but he ended up, after The Help, buying property in Natchez and just building little Hollywood there slowly over time. And that's bringing people to Natchez, people that have worked there through some of Tate Taylor's projects. They're like, this is a pretty great place. I can get beautiful property for way less than they can in California or New York or other parts of the world. So yeah, it's happening. It's happening.
You were a producer yourself. You actually did your own film, Ballast, that was highly recognized at the Sundance Film Festival. That helps you in your perspective of running this film office and understanding what challenges other producers have, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And sometimes I think the visiting filmmakers in the beginning, they may not quite believe us that we know what they're going through. But through and other people in our office too have film related experience, but certainly working on a feature film, a low budget feature film here in Mississippi. Ballast was filmed in Yazoo County. I know the ins and outs of what they're going through. I know that every penny counts. I know you want as many of those pennies to end up on the screen, and you don't want to have to fly everyone in, because then you're spending money on airline tickets. And so how can we help put that money on the screen, put the money in the props that they're buying and the people that they're hiring here locally, so that they don't have to house as many people, they don't have to fly as many people. Yeah, I get it. I know a project from the very beginning until the very end, taking it to a film festival. Right now Sundance is happening, and normally I would be there at Sundance as part of our job because we're promoting Mississippi to those filmmakers. But I am attending online, and it's just always, I'm attending online because there are filmmakers who have worked here before that have films in the festival. For example, there's a filmmaker, David Wolf, the producer of The Card Counter, which filmed on the Gulf Coast. his follow-up film to that is called Call Jane, and it just premiered at Sundance. So keeping up those relationships, learning what people are continuing to do, and making sure that they have an awareness that we're paying attention. Bill Webb, whom you know, they're on the Gulf Coast, he's our project manager on the Gulf Coast. He reached out to this same producer, and that producer said, you know, Bill, you're always keeping in touch. And I love that. You know, he very specifically commented that we are one of the few film offices that just keeps in touch, even if they don't have a project here. So we're trying to pay attention. And I think that's all the, you know, Mississippi, that intimacy that we create and the familiarity that we create. So
we're coming to the end of this segment, but when we come back, and while we'll talk a little bit more about his movie, A Day to Die, I think that Curtis Nichols is a great example of someone who's done incredible work. And you know how, you know, it's not always sexy being a producer. You know that better than anybody. You got to work in the trenches. But when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that and other successes. We'll talk about the incentive programs and how the pandemic hit this organization. I actually want to know what makes Nina tick. What makes her get up in the morning and want to work so hard for Mississippi, to put Mississippi on the map as it relates to film production. We'll see you more after this break.
Subscribe for free to the Coast View podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
When it comes to the outdoors, we are one. We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the great outdoors. So let's talk about it. Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews. Mondays starting at noon. Here on Super Talk Mississippi. Presented by the Foundation Protecting Our Outdoors Heritage. Listen or watch the show anywhere you get Super Talk Mississippi. If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices. SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place, the new SuperTalk.fm. Get the news that matters to Mississippi on Middays with Gerard Gibbert. Middays with Gerard Gibbert. Each weekday starting at 10 a.m., Gerard brings you a spirited debate on the key stories of the day with the newsmakers and powerful reporting on the issues you care about. Listen on your local SuperTalk station or anywhere you get SuperTalk Mississippi. And watch the show live on C Spire Channel 70, SuperTalk TV, and on the SuperTalk Mississippi app. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Nina Parikh, who is the director of the Mississippi Film Office. And I was thinking, Nina, during the break, one of the things I really enjoyed about being a publisher of a newspaper is that when just about anyone was in town of significance, whether it be a political person or someone who's involved in movies, and is in your case, or just someone who's in the news, was in the community, they usually came by the newspaper, and we had the opportunity to sit down and talk. And in a way, Coast View has been sort of a recreation of that for me. So it's a great opportunity to sit and talk to you and get to know you better. We're gonna continue the conversation about the film office and the role of the film office, the success of the film office. A lot of great things are happening there these days. But let's come back to you for just a second. What is it that makes you tick? I mean, first of all, I in my research of you and my watching you over a number of years, you're a really good communicator. And you mentioned about Bill Webb a second ago, reaching out to that one producer and staying in touch. But clearly, you're seen by people who are in the industry as someone they trust, someone they can communicate with, someone who can sort of shoot straight about what the situation is in Mississippi. That takes a lot of dogged determination. So, what is it that keeps you going?
It's a great question. I think Mississippi we're the underdog. I want to see us succeed. I want people to see the real us. And that can be done in so many different ways from where I sit. One of those ways is, of course, to bring people here to see Mississippi that may not have, they may look at Mississippi in a very stereotypical way. And so when they come here and then work here for months at a time, they get a totally different perspective and go back and go, oh, that's not what I thought. That they embraced me. This worked out. No matter what your background is, we find that happens over and over and over again. So I love the fact that I'm able to be that ambassador for people to come in and they feel welcome. I assume that most people, when they call the Mississippi Film Office, they're not necessarily expecting me to pick up the phone. So already their stereotype has been broken. We have a very diverse office, age range, ethnic background. So I love that we get to be that representative for the rest of the world when they come to visit. So we're already changing Mississippi's story in just the daily work that we do by just existing. But outside of that, I also like that we get to nurture Mississippi filmmakers and we get to tell our story, truly tell our story, not just by example, but find the stories that are happening here, whether they are real or imagined, but telling it from our perspective. And I get to play a tiny role in that every single day. So I think that's what gets me up. I love this state. I'm not originally from Mississippi. My dad's from India, my mom's from the Philippines. We moved around earlier in my life, Illinois, Indiana, New York, and then landed in Mississippi when I was about 11. And couldn't have imagined that I would embrace a place like I have, but it's home. It's home. I married a Mississippi boy. I'm raising a Mississippi boy. And I have a very rich life, and it is because of the state. It's because of the arts. It's because of the people. It's because of the food. Right. The stories.
So okay, so you see a growing number of Mississippi producers and others involved in the film industry coming along. I mentioned Curtis Nichols' name. He's not alone, but he's a good example of a more recent producer. Where's that coming from? Where's that seed? How is this happening in Mississippi?
In Curtis's case, so Curtis Nichols is based here in the Jackson area. Curtis started, I'm trying to remember how he started his career. I think he started probably as an actor and stunt performer, and that was outside of the state. And then while he was, I guess maybe that experience of working on other people's sets, he felt that I have a story to tell too, and why can't I tell it from Mississippi? So he started off making very low budget meaning like $50,000 or less projects, and he did a couple of those. And but because of his outside connections, he was able to say to others, I've made a movie here in Mississippi. Why don't you bring your bigger movie here and we'll make that? And so that started to happen. And with The Day to Die, which would be the largest production he's worked on here in the state, you had Bruce Willis and Frank Grillo and some other big stars here.
Kevin Dillon.
Yeah. So just he wants to have a studio here. So that's growing. And so, from my perspective, it's real important for us to really pay attention to those local filmmakers and their dreams, because it starts small. Sometimes it starts with a short film. We have a grant program called the Mississippi Emerging Filmmakers Grant Program. It's a small amount of money. It's $2,500 per filmmaker, and it's administered by the Mississippi Film Alliance. But that $2,500 allows them to make their first short film, which then it grows from there. So it's real important for us to pay attention there. Tonight, actually, we're going up to Tupelo for a screening of a film called Mysterious Circumstance about Meriwether Lewis. It's a narrative telling of his very mysterious death, which happened along the Natchez Trace. And this was made by a filmmaker by the name of Clark Ritchie. This is his first feature film. He had a whole career. I believe he's an engineer. Hopefully I don't get that wrong, but I believe he's an engineer. He has an art gallery and has always wanted to tell stories. And so he raised the money, wrote this script, made this movie, again, low budget, but high quality. John Schneider is in it. He plays Meriwether Lewis, so he has a little bit of star power there. And produced by a Mississippian as well, Robbie Fisher. So this will be her first feature to have produced, and we get to go see a special screening of that. Not a public screening, but a kind of a crew and cast screening. So just the fact that that's happening all over the state is amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. And you know what, though, Nina, it's hard work, as I mentioned.
Real hard.
In the final product, there's some sexiness and pizzazz attached to it, but the reality of it is it's hard. Then what you've seen in your tenure there, you've seen the industry changed really dramatically from really big screen and television to now streaming is such a big part of what's happening. I would assume, and I don't know this because I haven't read specifically about it, but I would assume that with streaming and so much I don't know, thirst for more content, that budgets are more important probably today than ever. And they're doing some amazing work. You think about some of the series on Netflix and some of the other stuff that's coming out today. They're doing some amazing stuff with budgets that are, you wouldn't have dreamed of in terms of low budgets. You wouldn't have dreamed of a few years ago. But you've really seen some dramatic changes in the industry, haven't you?
We really have. I'm one of the co-founders of the Crossroads Film Festival, and so that we started in 2000. So at that time, for example, we didn't get very many entries from Mississippi filmmakers. In fact, there were so few, we were out just reaching for, where are they? We're just digging for these Mississippi filmmakers. Most of them weren't the greatest quality either at that point. So now cut to, here we are in 2022, and we have multiple film festivals around the state with dozens upon dozens of entries from Mississippians, and you can't show them all. So that's absolutely changed dramatically, because now we have access to equipment more easily. When I was in school, mostly while there were video cameras, it wasn't high quality enough to go shoot your own project and have it air on the internet. We were really working in actual film at that point, 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter film, which is cost prohibitive for most people. And now we have the tools and we have computers. I mean, I could make a movie right here in my office with my iPhone and my computer.
Yeah, the barrier to entry has been lifted. And you think about how content is now delivered, that's all changed dramatically. And there's so much competition over content. And you're seeing big name entertainers, actors that would only thought literally never moved away from the big screen, who are now extraordinarily open to streaming.
Sure.
That's a major change, isn't it?
It is. It really is. I mean, I'm watching premieres of Sundance Film Festival movies right now from my computer with exclusive Q&As.
Pretty amazing. Hey, the one thing that that the average person may not appreciate, and we'll start this at the beginning of the next segment since we're coming to the end of this segment, is that you alluded to it at the beginning, every single state in the United States wants to score when it comes to filmmaking, because it's a great economic driver. And various legislators and leaders in communities are creating all kinds of different types of incentive programs. It's extraordinarily competitive. And then you think about what happened in the pandemic with New York and LA and then Georgia to some extent. Their demise relative to the pandemic really created opportunities for Mississippi. When we come back, I want to talk about sort of the economic drivers of the current situation that we face today. We'll come back after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast View on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
When it comes to the outdoors, we are one. We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the great outdoors. So let's talk about it. Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews. Mondays starting at noon. Here on Super Talk Mississippi. Presented by the Foundation Protecting Our Outdoors Heritage. Listen or watch the show anywhere you get Super Talk Mississippi.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back. Now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out. The new Bob 106.3.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on Super Talk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
These are our friends. These are our neighbors. We all have the power to grow our local economy and energize our community. Shop small businesses and make a difference.
Get the news that matters to Mississippi on Middays with Gerard Gibbert. Middays with Gerard Gibbert. Each weekday starting at 10 a.m., Gerard brings you a spirited debate on the key stories of the day with the newsmakers and powerful reporting on the issues you care about. Listen on your local Super Talk station or anywhere you get Super Talk Mississippi. And watch the show live on C Spire Channel 70, Super Talk TV, and on the Super Talk Mississippi app.
The Lars Larson Show. On the left, they say that this president has divided America. No, the opposition, the resistance to Donald Trump is what has divided America, because Donald Trump said he would work with both sides, and he's shown that he would. But the Democrats, because they want to take a position that everything about Donald Trump is wrong, to a large extent, they have refused to work with him on anything.
The Lars Larson Show, weeknights at 6 on Super Talk Mississippi. Whether you're brand new to the DIY craze or a seasoned veteran, the Handyman Show has something for you. Buddy Slowick shares tips and tricks on everything from odd jobs to complete build-outs, from small home repairs to serious construction. So no matter if you're at the master carpenter level or not quite sure how to use a level, the Handyman Show answers your questions with a healthy dose of humor and some great music too. Saturdays, 10 to noon on Super Talk Mississippi and on Super Talk TV.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive, fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show
on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on Super Talk, Mississippi. Hey, guess what? Bob is back. Now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out. The new Bob 106.3.
We're one Mississippi where there's a magnolia tree. To Mississippi while a mockingbird sings out on its limb. Oh, and what a sweet soulful hymn. I said 3 Mississippi to this land called home. I'll bleed Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Won't you carry on? I'll carry on. Mississippi, Mississippi. Mississippi.
And now, it's Coast View with Ricky Matthews. Brought to you by AGJ Systems and Networks on Super Talk 103.1 FM.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Nina Parikh with us. She's the director of the Mississippi Film Office, and we're just having a wide-ranging conversation about the changing nature of the business, the movie business, and the filmmaking business. We're talking, before we went to break, I mentioned that we should spend a little bit of time about the competitive nature of the situation. Sort of how does Mississippi stand? We'll evolve from that into more what did the pandemic do in terms of creating opportunities for Mississippi. But it is extraordinarily competitive, isn't it, Nina?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are incentive programs all over the world trying to draw filmmaking to their communities and their jurisdictions. So we've had an incredible years now. It's crazy that we're in years now of this pandemic. Probably, if you don't know anything about the film industry at all, if you were asked as a Mississippian, do you have a film industry there? Has it been busy? You'd probably think, oh no, we don't really have that. We have been the busiest we've been in terms of financial in the history of our office during the pandemic. And as you said earlier, we were lucky that Mississippi was open for business right there at in the summer of 2020, and we haven't stopped since then. We had the busiest fiscal year in the history of our office. The rebate started in 2004, and in fiscal year 2021, we maxed it out at $20 million. And that's only happened maybe close to once. It's never actually happened, but in 2015, we got close.
Nina, what's interesting to me, though, is it'll be interesting to see what the long-term impact is. And one of the things, for example, coastal Mississippi, the tourism effort in coastal Mississippi, very early in the process decided strategically that they were going to focus on people who travel in their cars. And they did. And because they said people feel safe in their cars. Our studies showed that over 80% of the people who come to coastal Mississippi come here in their cars. So we're going to get really focused on the drive-in traffic, okay? Because we know that the airports are going to be down for a period of time, certainly from a leisure travel point of view, and that's what they did. And if you look at the recovery of Mississippi, how it ranks in the United States. One of the top recoveries, once they turned the switch back on, one of the top recoveries in the United States. Then you look at the components of that really did well, and it was literally it was tourism. Tourism drove a big part of that. People coming in. Of course, gaming was a big part of it. There's a lot of theory now that a lot of people who were not otherwise familiar with coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi for that matter, who have traveled here by car have now been introduced to it, and they're going to be coming back again and again and again and again. Maybe the same thing happened in the film industry. That they had good experience, and we'll talk in just a second about all the pieces and the talent that you have to be able to pull something off like a film. But there's a chance you've accomplished that goal, and that maybe you'll see some repeat performances as a result of it.
Oh, we're already seeing the repeat clients coming back, customers coming back. Absolutely. Part of that has to do with our incentive being really strong. Part of it has to do with welcoming communities, and that Mississippianness that we have, that hospitality that we have. Communities are embracing productions, and they're making it easy for producers to make their films. There's a producer by the name of Daniel Lewis that worked there on the Gulf Coast. He made a project called Christmas in Mississippi, if you remember that. It was a couple years ago. And that wasn't his first film in Mississippi. That was like his fifth. And now he's done 2 more in Natchez, Mississippi. And he's coming back for more and more and more. The filmmaker, the producer that did Vanquish that I mentioned earlier, Richie Salvatore, he's on 4 or 5 now. So we have several producers like that, not just the 2 of them, that had a good experience, just like the tourists that drove in and discovered something that's like, oh, I didn't realize that there's great rebate. There are people here that are enthusiastic about filmmaking. There are talented people here. Oftentimes they are surprised that we have such great actors here. So, they think that they're going to have to fly everybody in, and then they start doing auditions here and casting calls, and they realize there's some true talent here. So they're hiring talent from here for in front of the camera, not just behind the camera. So, yeah.
But what you bring up is a really good point. When people think about putting a movie on, they think about maybe extras in front of screen, as you just pointed out. But what goes on behind screen, the technical expertise and a wide number of other positions that are necessary, they care a lot about whether that talent's going to be there. And you guys have really done a good job. You've got sort of this ready group that you can get in touch with on a moment's notice and come to bear. You've got a lot of part-time people who are engaged in this as well, who probably some like Kyle Curley on this producer of COSU can be a jack of all trades, do more than just one position.
Correct.
But that's something you have to spend a lot of time thinking about, isn't it?
We do. We need to build that crew base. We don't have enough personnel, but we have the people that we do have are very talented, and we are constantly trying to figure out where do we nurture more of that talent? Where do we train that talent? I'm a graduate, as we spoke, of the USM program. The radio, television, film program was what it was called then, and I studied film specifically. So those students are now on the Gulf Coast, whereas I was in Hattiesburg when I was in school. But the Gulf Coast students are incredibly valuable to the growth of the industry here in Mississippi. So we have Vincenzo Mistretta's students there on the Gulf Coast that are going straight to work on these productions. And sometimes while they're still in school, they get to intern on these big productions. And then also Pearl River Community College, Ron Haig there has a great program, and he's putting those students to work during school. And as soon as they graduate, they're off to work on a project. Hines Community College here in the Jackson area has a great program as well. So we're connected with those programs and making sure that those students they know that there's work to be had here, and hopefully they'll stay and build those resumes. You can build a resume quickly. It's real funny that you finish, well, you don't even have to, I'm not encouraging people not to finish their degrees, but you don't have to have a degree to work in this industry. Once you're on a set, if you're a good listener, you're a hard worker, you're a team player, you're going to be hired again. This is one of those industries where it's word of mouth. You know, you work once, and those people that you worked with, they're going to the next project, they're going to hire you again. And you move up the ladder pretty quickly too, if you want to. So it's a great industry for so many types of people, no matter what your background is educationally. Yeah, you don't have to have a degree to work in our industry, and it's creative. It's fulfilling in a very creative way. It's exciting. You know, I like to say that we get to have a hand in making dreams come true here in Mississippi.
Yeah. I like the way you said, you one of your biggest challenge. No. Challenge is really the worst thing I could call this, actually. You're a myth buster, and that you are an ambassador for this state so that people can get to know who we are, dispel some myths along the way, and hopefully you'll develop long-term relationships where they would come here and do business. You know, I can't think of a better person as it relates to that than Morgan Freeman. I mean, he probably is the ultimate myth buster. I know he's done 3 or 4 movies from Mississippi. More recently, I tried to actually find the release date on it, but Paradise Highway, has it actually been officially released yet?
It's not. It is not.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they have an official date yet. But they're getting
of course, Juliette Benici is in that, and then another Frank Grillo movie. I've been a real advocate for bringing attention to human trafficking and what that's all about. So that movie, when it does get released, will get a lot of attention, I believe. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. It's a very important subject matter for sure. And the way that they tell this story, I think, is really going to resonate with people. So I'm excited to see it, and it felt good to be a part of that. It always feels good to be a part, even just the tiniest part of a project that's going to be not just entertainment. There's something else to it. Like recently, there's a series on ABC that just finished last week called Women of the Movement, and it focused on Mamie Till and the very tragic story of her son Emmett Till, the murder.
Yeah.
And it feels incredible to be able to have had a role in that and sharing that.
When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with my new friend Nina Parikh, who's the director of the Mississippi Film Office, and we'll talk about a couple of other great examples and see where we go from here as a state. See you after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.
You know that nowadays, most people go online to look at a business before they spend their money. Are customers able to find you online? With the power of SuperTalk Mississippi Media Digital, you can reach potential customers and get more referral and repeat business. SuperTalk Mississippi Media Digital's highly trained and trusted staff is ready to work with you to help your business capitalize on the power of digital marketing. Call 601-991-2305 or go to stmmdigital.com to get started today.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
SuperTalk Mississippi. Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth. When you want the truth. Simply because it might hurt some feelings. And nothing but the truth. Lose some subscribers. You want the Gallo Radio Show. I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead. The Gallo Radio Show. And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself. Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Whether you're brand new to the DIY craze or a seasoned veteran, the Handyman Show has something for you. Buddy Slowick shares tips and tricks on everything from odd jobs to complete build-outs, from small home repairs to serious construction. So no matter if you're at the master carpenter level or not quite sure how to use a level, the Handyman Show answers your questions with a healthy dose of humor and some great music too. Saturdays, 10 to noon on SuperTalk Mississippi and on SuperTalk TV. Get the news that matters to Mississippi on Middays with Gerard Gibbert. Middays with Gerard Gibbert. Each weekday starting at 10 a.m., Gerard brings you a spirited debate on the key stories of the day with the newsmakers and powerful reporting on the issues you care about. Listen on your local SuperTalk station or anywhere you get SuperTalk Mississippi. And watch the show live on C Spire Channel 70, SuperTalk TV, and on the SuperTalk Mississippi app.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Del Berra. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera slips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. When it comes to the outdoors, we are one. We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the great outdoors. So let's talk about it. Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews. Mondays starting at noon. Here on Super Talk Mississippi. Presented by the Foundation Protecting Our Outdoors Heritage. Listen or watch the show anywhere you get Super Talk Mississippi. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Well, back to Coast View. We have Nina Parikh, who's the director of the Mississippi Film Office, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. Again, this is one of the reasons I did this show, is to find a lot about what makes people tick, people who are in really important roles in this state. And in this case, Nina is as we discussed earlier, an ambassador for the state in more ways than one. And, we've got a lot of great ambassadors, a lot of people who have roles that take you outside the state, and they represent the state when they do whatever it is they do. And they give people the good impressions that they need to give them so that, hopefully people will visit here. So hopefully people will do business here. And a growing number of film companies and production companies are doing business here. We mentioned A Day to Die a couple of times, but I love the story because here you have Curtis Nichols from Jackson who's doing it. He's he's able to raise the money, bring in a good director, bring in a great cast, including Bruce Willis, and pull it off. You got to be excited when you see all the pieces come together in a movie like that.
Oh, I'm like a proud mama. Yeah, there's definitely that feeling of pride. I also teach, and it's that same feeling when I see one of my students go from just kind of an idea, and then suddenly they write a script, and then they get their friends and family together to shoot it, and then they sit in the editing room for weeks on end, and then we premiere it. And that spark, that sense of completion and satisfaction, like I did that.
Yeah.
There it is. People can see it and people are reacting to it. Is magic. It's magic. And maybe that comes from the fact that I'm a creative person too, and I studied filmmaking, and I know what that feels like personally. And so when I see that happen for someone else, it's joyful. Absolutely joyful.
Well, you say you actually teach film production at Millsaps, and that, I mean, again, technology, there aren't the barrier to entry we used to have, as you well pointed out. You put the tools in a creative person's hands, and magic can happen. I bet literally you've had moments or seen moments where you just go, oh my God, that was unbelievable. That's special.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll be in tears. I'm not a crier normally, but that always gets me. Always gets me. Yeah, I've seen it a lot of times. And when I'm teaching, certainly at Millsaps, there have been moments where I thought, I can't teach you anything other than you got it. You got it. And I'm just going to support you and nurture you through this.
That's pretty cool, Nina. That's pretty cool. But again, and even in that story you just mentioned about sort of the emotional connection you have to it, tells me you're a leader with a heart, and it makes a big difference when you're in an important role and you're trying to connect with people, that you have a heart, and that showed really well in that story you just told. But hey, listen, if you think about going forward for Mississippi, where do we go from here? How do we remain competitive?
How do we remain competitive? We're at that point where we like I mentioned, we met our incentive cap for the first time the last fiscal year. We're going to meet it again. So do we want to grow? Well, if we want to grow, then we have to allow that growth. We're at the point where we can't grow anymore in terms of money. So we have to make that decision. We also have to determine, are we going to train more people, and how are we going to train more people? So finding those connections, finding the tools to do that. My personal goal is to share more of Mississippi. I think that there is more to share. That we have so many stories, and it's not just the stories that we typically have seen come out about Mississippi. There's a lot of complexity here, a lot of different diverse stories to tell, and I'm looking forward to being a part of getting those on the screen.
I have a place up in the Mississippi Delta, and I was having a conversation with someone, and they told me this story about a New York Times reporter, white reporter, who came down to the Mississippi Delta and was going to cover a story of some sort. And one of the things she did, she entered into a poor community. I don't know where it is. Chula is in my mind. I have actually at least a farm in Chula, but it may not have been there. And she went down this long road, and she came up on this house, and there was an old African-American woman sitting on the front porch. And she got out of her car, and she had this thing in her mind that she wouldn't be welcome. And when she got on the porch, the woman says, welcome. They introduced her. She said, would you like a glass of tea? And she went inside and got a glass of very sweet tea and sat on a rocking chair with this woman, and they had the most amazing conversation. That's where two cultures collide in this amazing thing. And I like I say, I spent a lot of time in the Mississippi Delta. I love it there. Can't get enough of it. But there's so much fodder in this great state to talk about, isn't there? There's so much scenery and incredible people, and it's special, isn't it?
It's real special. I mean, it's not just us as Mississippians saying that it's special, but I see it all the time. People from other places come here and they tell me, wow, this is special. So it's not just our perspective. Other people truly see it too.
Well, that's what it's all about, and that's what you do. You're about creating that connection, finding out what it is that's going to connect, and sometimes you never know. It might be the incentive. It might be the culture. It might be the landscapes. It might be, who knows what it might be. It might be all of those things together.
It's always food. It's always food.
You have to hit on every cylinder to have success. But Nina Parikh, Director of Mississippi Film Office for the MDA in Mississippi, we really appreciate you being here today. It's been a delight to get to know you better, and we'll check in with you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.